Hey gang, welcome back to Dr. Bosky, and today we're going to talk about the transformation editor or the transform editor. So what that is if you come up here, you can see, you can click and it's called the transform editor. It opens it. You can move it around as you can see here, as I just did. Sometimes you need to move the things. If you press the F10 key, that'll open and close it. Yeah. And basically, what is this thing? Okay, so these are enemies in our game, but it also applies to backgrounds as well, by the way. Backgrounds as well. So, and every entity, when you have it selected, is going to give you in the world, and this is, so the world is this, right? So it's X, Z, Y. Could be Y, Z, X, doesn't matter. The main thing is that this is like the three different directions in which, technically there's six, but three that you can navigate the world in. And the world is 3D space. So I'm going to simplify that, but I'll show you because it's just easier to see that, right? So you can see here, you can grab your little arrows. It took me a long time to understand this. You can click and drag, and these are going to move the objects in world space by either their X, or their Y. By the way, Y is depth, right? So you can see positive is closer to the camera, depending on how you set it up. And negative is further away from the camera, right? So you can see that little guy down there. So now, because it's further away from the camera, it's going to parallax at different speeds naturally, just as the camera scrolls through space. I won't bother you too much with that. There's some complexity there. The main thing to know here, though, is that you can come in here and you can look at the coordinates for your entities in the world, and then you can adjust them that way. So you can also click and drag. And by the way, your little handles here, right? So that's X. This one is Z. And then if you go to perspective camera, you can also adjust things in the Y. Woo! And so you can see here, here's my world, right? Our world planes, of course. You can do all kinds of cool stuff. Look, I got a weird thing down there. Yeah, so very cool to look at. A little bit trippy, not as important. But the key here, coming back to this before I get lost, is that your transformations are just that. So you can rotate, right? And I find this one very useful a lot of times, where I'm like, oh, hey, I want to, maybe you want to make a bunch of entities that are, I don't know, 45 degrees. And you're like, oh, hey, you know what I need to do? I want to make a guy that is opposite of this guy. But let me see here. Maybe we'll try this. Make it a 45. And it's funny because I pulled it apart that way. So, you can see that you're rotating the entities around. Same thing. You can rotate them this way, right? So maybe it's very hard to, you want to have your entity at this weird and interesting plane, maybe made of 45 in Z. And if you were going to, oh, by the way, Q on the keyboard is your normal transformation, X, Y, Z. W is your rotation gizmo. Rotation, click and drag, right? And this is, and then E is your scale. Your scaling value. So let's scale here. Remember, you only have one undo step. So if you don't like quite what you did, then you can always undo it by using Control Z. Okay. So, but for instance here, I'm like, oh, I'm trying to set up this interesting weird enemy. And instead of coming in here and trying to, I don't know, rotate this thing all around this way, you could just come in here, click in the field, Control A, Control C to copy it. Come down here and you're like, hey, I want this guy to be the, I'll show you that in a second. 1 second. I want this guy to also be the same as this guy, right? So, and you could just do that. And did that work right? Maybe it did not. Let's see. X. Oh, maybe it's because of the Y offset, maybe. Let's take a look. Interesting. All right. So in this case here, why don't we zero this out? See where we're at. There we go. What is that thing? Oh, maybe that's what it was. Maybe I actually, that makes more sense. I accidentally duplicated the object. Yeah, so here, for instance, same, coming back to this in a second, but you know, for instance, I'm like, oh hey, my enemy now is rotated in the wrong direction because I want these enemies are it's the weapon switcher enemy, and it's just there for debug purposes for me. But you can come in here and you say, oh hey, okay, so the rotation is on the Y. Let me come back here and match that. So you can match your entities to be aligned the same way. So coming back to this, we could also do this now, right? And then we need to do this. Oops. Hello. And take a look here. What did we miss? So we're there, there. Well, I think the point that I'm trying to make isn't working here. So in the more simple side, not the rotational side, because sometimes the math will get a little bit funky with the rotational values, and that will put you in a weird, in a different axis. So, but you can always come back in here, zero those things out, and then you can reset yourself. So for instance, I can, so it's 90 and 45 minus 45. There we go. So you can see it then it's a little bit wonky when you have off angles. Sometimes you have to mirror the math. But in a more simple slide case, here I have where I'm like, oh, maybe I want these guys to be a weird platform plane. So, and maybe I come in here and I accidentally do one of those things. I'm like, oh, one of these doesn't look right. I'm like, oh yeah, that's because it's minus 45. So that's the gist of it, right? Okay. So let's get rid of these. So that was rotation, scale, shortcuts. All right, so now you have on the transformation side, you have basically, you have, this one is global transformation, right? Which you talked about the world for moving objects through your world in global coordinate space. And then you have relative transformation. And what this is, this basically allows you, if you want to use your gizmo, it always creates zeros because it's moving this relative to itself. So those aren't positions. So it's just moving by, I don't really use this too much myself, but for instance, maybe you're like, I want to rotate this by 90. Oh, okay, cool. Now I can do one of those, right? So I can have it set the same way. Oh, this guy, by the way, is, that's fun. We'll talk about that in a second. But anyways, the point being is that the values will zero out because they're relative to the object. And if you flip back to global transformations, you'll see here that even though you've moved things around, it got a rotation value, it got the scale value. So over here, even though I moved the scale by another 100, when you flip back over here, it says, oh, hey, the scale now is actually 10. So, okay. So the last thing we should talk about here is, there we go. All right, so that was that. Okay. So I already talked about the Z. I already talked about that. Let me take a quick look. What else did I have? So different modalities, camera perspective. We talked about the handles. Oh, okay. Now you might be asking yourself, what is a good practical use of the transformation editor beyond what I've already shown, right? And one of those things is if you go into the waypoints for an enemy type, you'll notice here you have each of your waypoints, and then you have path, tension, speed, all the parameters for the waypoint. But you also notice, check this out. So as I move through the waypoints, the gizmo, which is just the term for these little handles you can grab, is highlighted for that, right? So, and look at this. So here you can see that the translation for X, Y, and Z updates each time I move one of these around. So it also means you can do things like refine your, maybe you want to have a mathematically refined pattern. I mean, all games are math at the end of the day, right? So, but you could do something like, hey, I want to have like, I want to have maybe, you want to have like, you want to repeat this, right? So you could basically say, because you want the enemy to do a basically an up and down, right? So you can do this where you come down here and you're like, okay, this is minus 10 and minus 30. So, and this one we could say is just to make it easier. You'd say, oh, I want this one to be minus 20. And then now you're like, okay, cool. I want to try from here, actually. It's always easier when you have grid snap on, by the way. And maybe you want to repeat this pattern here. And so what I would do here is I would do something like this, minus 40, minus 10, let me say minus 20. And then over here, I want to have this minus 30. Yeah, so minus 20, minus 40, and then you could be like, oh, let me try minus, let's see, hey. 30, what was the thing I was trying to get work through here? It was this, and this example is actually sucking. All right, let's see here. So let's come back to this. All right, so minus 10, we got our enemy spot. We have our first waypoint. And let's just say minus 20, minus 10. And then I want to say, hey, aside from the Z translation sideways, X translation is up and down. Yeah, so then maybe I want to say something like, hey, leave this here. So we'll go at 0 here, and all I want to do is have an offset where it's minus 20, minus 10, and then back here I want to be like, hey, I want to minus 40, minus 20. Okay, I had to play around a little bit to figure it out again. So yeah, so the example here is that you have an enemy, you have your waypoints, and you have the transformation editor open. And what I have here is I have a waypoint down here, and let's just say for the sake of argument that I wanted to have a horizontally aligned set of waypoints. And I want them to be equally spaced because maybe the enemy moves to waypoint, stops, shoots, moves to waypoint, stops, and shoots. And if you want it to be like a tank or something that's systematic, you would then come in here and say, hey, the tank is going to come down here. We will be at minus 5, which again you can see here moves horizontally in this particular case. And then we want to say maybe we should try, I don't know, minus 15. So we'll maybe do increments of 15. And then you come over to your next waypoint and you're like, oh, hey, let's do minus 30. So we're going to do it by 15. And then we'll do minus 45. And leave that the way it is for now. But here you can see like, oh, hey, cool. Like that first waypoint is here. And then I want to have even spacing between these waypoints. I would do that. So technically, if I started at 0, let's see, started at 0, then I could also do that where I'm like 0 to 15, 15 to 30, 30 to 45. And so you get the point, right? So, and basically I would have that. So you could try to do this by grabbing your waypoints and just moving them around and kind of aligning them. But it's sometimes having that little extra precision on making sure your entities are aligned is super helpful. And a little bonus tip here, right? So if we take a quick look at this, is it this one? Yeah, okay, cool. So check this out. So I have an enemy here, and this enemy is on a waypoint. All right, and just delete that. That can go away. And okay, so he's on a waypoint here. And so the waypoint is minus 2, minus 18. And then this one you'll notice is in the Y, it's at 50. So that means that as the enemy is traveling across the waypoint, it's going to come closer to the camera. And then it goes back to 0, goes back to 0. And then I go to minus 50 at that point. So that looks like this. So you can see that it's actually going up and down from the camera as it moves through the world for space, right? So Sometimes, you know, you could use stuff like this to do, I don't know, some weird environmental effects. You could do an interesting enemy. You could do an enemy that scales up. And then as they reach different points on the waypoints, they would switch their weapons. So it gives you a lot of variety. And one of the things that the transformation editor does is gives you that ability to refine down to essentially I think it's 0.2 precision. Get to floating point precision. So you only have one other point. So not too bad there. Okay, probably the last thing. What is there? So we've talked about that. I think those are the main things for the transformation editor. Was there anything else I missed? Talked about the hotkey, waypoints, control clicks. Talked about the gizmo. A little pro tip for you here. So if you hold the mouse button, you'll notice that for me, and it should be for you as well, it turns it into the little hand so you can grab and pan around. Super helpful. Also, when you have something selected, if you hold the left mouse button and you're moving it around, and then you hold the middle mouse button, you can scooch things through the world without having to like grab and move the camera every time. So pretty cool, right? And you can also do it this way too. But if you do this, then it just becomes a free form, but it's also quite helpful. Okay. With that, I hope that was helpful. I know it's a little bit complicated to understand. If you have questions, leave them down in the comments section, and we'll see you next time.